This is a response to LJP, who put out a challenge to Religion Think and I Want to Be Jew. The challenge is he wants to know who the individual is that the book of Isaiah is describing in the following, Isaiah 7:14. Who is that about? Well, the answer, if you've actually read Isaiah, go to the next chapter, in chapter 8, and you'll see that Isaiah's wife gives birth to a child, and Isaiah says that these are the children that the Lord has given as signs and portents and so on and so forth. In fact, let me just very quickly see if I can pull that up here. Then in Isaiah 8:3, then I went to the prophetess, and she conceived and gave birth to a son. The Lord said to me, name him blah 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 blah. Before the boy knows how to say my father or my mother, the wealth of Damascus and the plunder of Samaria will be carried off by the king of Assyria. Very important, because if you read Isaiah 7, the first 13 verses, instead of just skipping to number 14, this is what we call context. It's where text without context is a pretext. So what you were doing is you were using a pretext. You started with Isaiah 7:14. You should have started with Isaiah 7:1, because in 7:1 the whole point of this prophecy that you're referring to was to assure the king of that time that there was a deliverance coming from the enemies of Judah, that the king of Israel had conspired with the Aramaean king to come against Jerusalem. And so Isaiah went to the king of Judah, Ahaz, to give him assurance that God was looking out for him. And in that, and in so doing, he says, Isaiah said to the king, ask for a sign. And the king said, I won't put the Lord to the test. Isaiah actually gets angry, and he says, look, I've given you an opportunity to ask for a sign, ask for a sign. And so then Isaiah imposes this sign about a young woman or a virgin who would give birth to a son. Now, I'm not going to get into arguments about virgin births just yet. I don't know if I will, but I could. But the point is that he then goes on about, before the child is old enough to be able to choose the right from the wrong, and so on and so forth, that the deliverance that is being promised would take place. That's the whole point of the prophecy. The prophecy was for King Ahaz. When it says, that this will be a sign to you, that the young woman or the virgin will give birth to a son, when it says this is a sign to you, it's not to you, and it's not to me as a you, it's to King Ahaz and to no one else. That prophecy is only for King Ahaz, which means that King Ahaz must see the fulfillment of it. And 700 years later is hardly much comfort to somebody who is surrounded by his enemies at that time. So in the prophecy itself, it talks about how the child, I guess I'm going to have to go back to 7 again here. He will, in 7:15, he will eat, the child will eat curds and honey when he knows enough to reject the wrong and choose the right. But before the boy knows enough to reject the wrong and choose the right, the land of the two kings you dread will be laid waste. So compare this to chapter 8 again. In 8:4, before the boy knows how to say my father and my mother, the wealth of Damascus and the plunder of Samaria will be carried off by the king of Assyria. Now, do you see the connection here? The connection is that this child here is connected to the prophecy in the previous chapter. So you're asking who that prophecy is about. It's about Isaiah's son, who has a very long name, who I won't try to pronounce. The Lord spoke to me again because the people have rejected the gently flowing waters of Shiloh, and rejoice over Rezin, the son of Remaliah, who was the Aramaean king who was in alliance with the northern kingdom against Judah. Therefore the Lord is about to bring against them the flood waters, and so on and so forth. So this is God once again assuring Isaiah that this child that has been born to your wife is going to be the sign. This is the sign that the deliverance will come. And we know that the deliverance, historically, we know that the deliverance did in fact come. And then we're going to skip down here. Let me just find it. Stumble, blah, blah, blah. So in Isaiah 8:16, so down to verse 16, bind up the testimony and seal up the law among my disciples. I will wait for the Lord who is hiding his face from the house of Jacob. I will put my trust in him. This is Isaiah. Here am I, and the children the Lord has given me. We, me and my children, are signs and symbols in Israel from the Lord Almighty who dwells on Mount Zion. Remember back in 7:14 that he was going to give a sign, and the sign was that the virgin would give birth to a son. Here is Isaiah saying that me and my children are the signs and symbols in Israel that the Lord uses. So the Lord was using Isaiah's son as a sign. Okay? Now, then the question gets raised, well, what about this virgin issue? Because obviously it's virgin, right? Well, if you take and spend some time studying this, you'll find that over time, over the last number of years, more and more Christians have finally acknowledged, more and more scholars have finally acknowledged that, perhaps virgin wasn't the right translation. And you'll see that a lot of newer translations are no longer using the term virgin because it is clear that it really wasn't supposed to be virgin. It was just a young woman. When you see that it's Isaiah's wife, and they already had a child before, when you see that it's Isaiah's second, at least his second son, at least, then we know that it could not have been a virgin birth, because it's clear who the young woman was supposed to be. It was Isaiah's wife. So that's Isaiah 7:14. So that answers number 1. Let's do this.